Welcome back everyone. Am I audible properly?
This meeting is being recorded.
I hope my shared content is also visible. Row mapper. What is row mapper? Yesterday also we discussed about this particular part. So row mapper is a functional interface. The very first definition for this particular part is that it is the functional interface. Now, if we check what is functional interface, so these are the interfaces which will have at least one abstract method. They can be represented by, and if there is a functional interface, we can represent them by an annotation. That annotation is at the rate of functional interface. So what is row mapper? Row mapper is a functional interface. Then what is functional interface? That these are the interface which will have at least one abstract method. Now what is abstract method? The methods in Java which does not have body. So kind of example we can say void map row method, right? This method does not have any body. It is having only method signature. If it is having body also, it is a normal method. It's not abstract method now. So we are discussing about particular row mapper. So this row mapper is a functional interface. Row mapper is given by Spring JDBC to fetch the data from database. Whenever we are trying to fetch the data from database, we will use row mapper. What row mapper? So row mapper has an inbuilt procedure to map, or you can say this row mapper has an abstract method that is map row. So row mapper has this abstract method that is map row, and what it will do, it will map all the database rows into Java object. What it will do? It will map all the database rows into Java object. Now, when we are talking about the database rows, so how our database is looking? So this is how our database is looking of now. And this database is giving us values on the basis of query, where is written in this particular language. You can is only
This meeting is being
after that
recorded.
it is written that it is a functional interface. This is a functional interface. It can be used as a lambda expression for method difference. Now here you can check this particular part at the rate of functional interface as a annotation, which is also a document here. Now when we are talking about any functional interface, so already we have discussed this part. If a type is annotated with this annotation type, means if someone is having at the rate of functional interface annotation, compilers are required to generate an error message unless the type is an interface type and not an annotation type enum or class. Means this row mapper will be working as a interface only. If you are trying to create it as a class, means directly you can't use. Second is the annotated type satisfies the requirement of a functional interface. Now, when we are talking about requirements of functional interface, right? So, what can be the requirement of functional interface? Anyways, we'll go back for a moment and we will just read this particular part. Now, you just read this particular text that I have selected if it is visible for you, or just this one till here. Read it within a minute and then we will discuss. An interface used by JDBC template. So who will use this row mapper? JDBC template for mapping rows of a result set on a per row basis. Per row basis means all the rows will be mapped one by one. implementation of this interface perform the actual work of mapping each row to a result object, but don't need, actually it's a grammatical mistake here, don't need to worry about exception handling. SQL exception will be caught and handled by the calling JDBC template. Generally, whenever we are working with exception, here who is handling? JDBC. In the project also we have seen that particular part. So this is our row mapper, right? And it is used to map all database rows into Java object, right? No, functional interface will have only one abstract method. So at least, okay, at least and at last, it will have only one abstract method. Okay, functional interface will have only one abstract method, strictly only one. And that should be present also. At least and at last means only one should be there and it should be present. So this is row mapper. Now this is written in English language. Let's try to understand in it our graphical terms. So at first, these are the values that are given to us by database. So we will try to understand the entire flow. So these are the values returned to us. So here we will mention that these are the rows returned by the database when we fired a query. And the query is select asterisk from employee. So this was our query. And when we fired this query, we got these particular values as selecting rows. Now, what is the actual problem? Why can't we write this particular thing in Java and take the data from database? So there is a problem, and the problem is this: as Java as a programming language does not understand the concept of rows, and database is returning the values in the form of rows. Okay, so this is returning the values in the form of rows, and all good also. Now, to handle the data returned by database, we need the row mapper interface. Now let's say what will be the work of row mapper interface. So if you understand Java programming language, we have to implement the row mapper interface, right? This is the case. We have to implement the interface. So what we will do here, we will create one class. So understand this flow, what we are doing. As our database database is returning the rows of employees. I am taking my example. If you are working with student or anything else, you have to write that only. So as our database is returning the rows of employees, so we will create a class to implement row mapper interface. So what I will do, I will create a public class employee mapper which is implementing the row mapper. But if you have noticed on the website of Spring Docs or everywhere even I have written that this row mapper cannot be implemented directly. You have to give it a type, that what type of value database is giving you. What type of value database is giving you. So at first I am writing this line. So there is a note as, so here I will write one T as row mapper interface requires type T. What does it mean? The type of data returned by the database. As we are working on the employee data, so I should replace this T with employee. So we should replace T with employee. Now, as employee is not a inbuilt class, employee is not an inbuilt class in Java. So we have to create a class as employee with exactly the same fields that are returned by the database. So did you understood till now that as database is returning the rows of employees, so we will create a class to implement row mapper. So what we did, we created a public class employee mapper which is implementing this row mapper. And row mapper cannot be implemented directly because there is one type attached with it. There is one type attached with it, T. Now you have to provide this T. It can be int, it can be string, it can be anything, but type you should give. In our case, what kind of data we are returning? Employee kind of data. So we should replace this T with what? Employee. So I will try to create public class employee mapper and it is implementing row mapper interface, but the type is employee. And now if you are giving reference of something as employee, let's say if I am writing int here, int is there in Java know what is int. If I am writing string here, Java know that there is a string class. But if I am writing employee, Java knows anything about employee? No. So now you have to create this class also. So now we will create employee class as well. Do you know about Lombok API? You did Lombok? Lombok. Okay, no problem. Okay, okay. If you haven't done Lombok, we will do. Don't worry. Now, as Java does not know what is this employee, so we will give Java a knowledge about this. So we will say that we have a class of employee, public class employee. I have attached one line that the field of this employee should be same as the field that are available in database. So have a look at database. We have ID, int, name, string, mobile number, string, email, string, salary, int. So within class, you should define the same thing. So private int ID, private string name, private string mobile number, private string email, and then at last private int salary. And here I am just writing one particular thing, getter and setter. So can you understand that all the getter setters are there? I'm not typing it here. So all the getters and setters are there for this class. Understand these with real getter for all field. When I'm writing just getter, it is not available in Java, right? Don't think that it is available, that you can write getter and it will create. That's why I was asking you about Lombok API, that if you know Lombok or not. If you don't know, I will teach it some fine day. Because of Lombok API, what will happen? There is an API in Java. Over the class, I can write at the rate of getter and at the rate of setter. So now how many fields you are creating inside this, their getter setter is created. That's it. That is Lombok API. If you don't want to keep getter setter also, so there is one fine annotation that is at the rate of data. You can keep this data also. So in real development, we don't keep getter setters like that. Public void, get ID, set ID. No. We just keep this annotation. One annotation, data. Getter setters are done. Two string method is also done while writing data, right? We will teach this, but you don't know, so I'm not forcing it. I'm just writing getter setters here and with a message. Understand these with real getters or real setter for all fields. Now we have a employee class, right? Why we created this employee class? Because it is the requirement that you are implementing one row mapper interface which requires type, and you are saying that we are having the values of type employee. So now you have to create one employee class. That is what we have created here. Now when we created this employee class, so we will say one thing. Whenever we are implementing any interface, whenever we are implementing any interface, so it is fixed that we have to override their methods, fixed or not. So whenever we are implementing any interface, we have to override, their abstract methods. As row mapper interface is having a, or you can say an abstract method, that is map row. So we have to override it. We have to override it. So which class is implementing the row mapper interface? Employee mapper. Now this class should override the method. So the code will go in the same way. So we have this public class employee mapper, which is implementing row mapper interface with the type employee, with the type employee. And here we have to override the method of this row mapper. So here I will just say at the rate override. What is the return type of that particular method? Mapro. Yesterday we did it. Its return type is always equal to this T. It is always equal to this T. So here I can say that the mapro method, at first this mapro method works on two argument. The first argument is result set rs, and it works on int row num, means number of row. And yesterday we did this particular part. We'll just open this one, employee of mapro. The return type of this mapro is the T. Whereas what is the T in our case? Employee. So this mapro should return one employee. This mapro should return employee, and it is a public method. So public employee mapro takes two things, result set rs int row num, and it throws SQL exception. It throws SQL exception. That is written there itself, that you don't have to worry about it. Now, as the return type of this mapro is employee, it should return employee, right? So here we will write one note. And the note is, as the return type of mapro method, it will change. It will change according to your type. If sometime we are working on a library management system or any particular other system, so it will work there. As the return type of mapro is employee, so it should return employee. But the question is, from where it will get employee? From where it will get employee? Now there is just a good thing here. As mapro method internally processing, as mapro method internally processing result set. So in result set, in result set, we have got all the employees data from database on a per can time the map row can produce or can create the object of one employee. Now, how it will create employee? As our employees are having these five fields, as our employees are having 2, 3, 4, 5, and I am saying that it will create one employee at one time. So how it will create? Now we will implement this method map row. So how we will implement? Again the same way. We have our public class employee mapper, which is implementing row mapper, and the type is employee. It is overriding the method that is public, or return type is employee, method name is map row. It take result set rs. You can take any name actually, but by default it is written int row num. Is it row num or num row? Row num only. Which rows is are. So what is happening here? All the employees are coming into one by one. Per row basis means one by one they are coming into RS. So we will create the employee object. So if employee is an empty employee, of you can be zero. Empty ID will be zero, all the strings will be null, right? And salary will be zero. The value to this employee, but how and from where values will come? As all the so how we will take that data? So here I will prepare that employee. I will say e dot set ID. From where ID will come? ID will come from result set. RS dot get ID. But whenever we are writing this get ID, here either you can provide the method name, sorry, field name means ID, name, mobile number. Because okay, one more thing, here we don't write ID. Here we write int. If you are fetching int, so result set knows int and string. It don't know ID and all those. So rs dot get int. Now when in the employee's ID field you are trying to write a int value, but your database is having two int values. ID is also int, salary is also int. Now you have to give reference. Either you can give column number, that is 1. Here indexing starts with 1. Or else you can give the ID name. Because there are two int value and result set will get confused that what we have to write. So I am saying that in the ID field, set the value of ID column from database like this. So yesterday we fetched this with column number as well, and you can fetch with column name. E dot set name from where the name of employee will come, result set dot get string. But there are actually three string values available here: one, two, three. Now you have to either tell column number or you have to tell column name. So most preferable is writing column names. So here I am saying that I want the value of column name. E dot writing, we can write a column index as well. We can write column index as well, which starts with one. Which starts with one. The next way, e dot set email rs dot get string column name is email. Then at last, e dot set in how we will take one row from database, first row, and prepare the values like this and return. Second way, again it will take this 102 row, fit the values, and again return. Here, automatic iteration will go inside. Automatic iteration means how many rows are available. So even I will mention that in notes, there is a note to understand here. This map row method will map all the available all the available rows given by database automatically. It means that whenever we are calling map row method, whenever we are calling map row method, it will iterate on all the rows of database automatically. Automatically, it will take all the employees. Now everything is ready. Now we just need one main class to perform the operation. Now we need main class to perform the operation. So yesterday we were doing this in a separate class, which was not our main class. Fetch employees where this one. So in this particular, we were writing the method, but now we will write it in a. I will create a separate project for it so you can understand. So now we will create a main class. As we are going to create a Spring project, so we will mention that we are having objects. So there is a public class main, and this public class main, or actually we will create an Spring application as a Maven, so it will be public class app. It should have main method public static void main string x. Shrikar, why don't we create main method everywhere? Why do we not create main method in all the classes? From last 2 days, I am writing two reasons. And every day you are saying only one reason, that two half. I will ask tomorrow again. Okay. So in the main method, we will create the container, that is application context container equals to new annotation config application condition now equals to, we install JDBC template to run our query, as we can't use the update method of JDBC. Now we will use the query method. So how the query method looks like, we will write it. But before that, I will say template dot query, and it takes two things. Whenever you are writing template dot query, it takes two things. The first thing that it will take is your query as a string. So here we are writing this query, means we are giving the reference of our string. Second thing, it takes object of row mapper, object of class, which is implementing row mapper. Object of class which is implementing row mapper. So I will make it as a comment here. So this is how we have to write. Template dot query, query the value inside this. I do counter correction framework, you know about this. Java, it is is listed. So here these lists are setting the employee type of value, EMP. What will happen in this case whenever we are running the query method? And this query method equals to all the employees. Now we talk about the employees in EMP is we can use we can use